Okay, we're going to start the process of creating the textured brows on Trinity, but the most important thing that I need to do first is to place a glove on the hand that I'm going to be touching Trinity with mostly. And that is because my hand, even though it's clean, has natural oils on it. I don't want to be putting oils onto Trinity and creating a base where my paints won't stick. So typically I like to use this large glove because it slips on and off real easy, and so anytime I need to open a jar or anything like that, I can just slip it off. However, it's kind of noisy for videoing, so I'm going to use one of my vinyl gloves that I use for placing inside the doll containing glass beads for weight. It's a little bit quieter. So I'm going to use that one, and I have created a palette over here with just a little bit of the matte varnish, the Genesis Matte Varnish. I've stirred it up with a craft stick or a popsicle stick. Just stir it up to soften it, just so that I can make it pliable. You'll see on this side of the plate that I have SV. That stands for satin varnish. That's another Genesis product that I occasionally like to coat my dolls with first before I paint instead of the matte varnish. I should talk about that a little bit. It is covered in my DVD, but if you're just watching any of my stuff for the first time, it's important to know that I have already coated Trinity with Genesis satin varnish. I like that as a base for my paints. It makes the paints cure quicker for me, and it gives just a beautiful sheen, a beautiful texture, a nicely finished doll. In my DVD I teach to use the Genesis Matte Varnish, which I still do use. Again, it depends on which doll I'm working on and what overall results that I want. For Trinity, Lorna asked me to create his skin tone similar to the Nigel prototype that I did by Lillian Breedveld. And on Nigel I use the satin varnish, so I have started Trinity with the satin varnish. I have not painted him yet. I like to use the satin or the matte varnish as a primer for my vinyl. Not because the paints won't stick, but because I like the overall texture and finish of the doll. So he's already been coated and he's been baked. So I am going to take a small brush, and there's just so many different brushes to use out there. I don't remember where I got half of them, but this one is a Connoisseur 352 Sable Mix Bright, and it's just a small little tip here, a little flat tip. And I'm going to put a little bit of the varnish on my brush. I'm going to find a comfortable angle, and I am going to start at the lower end of the lower part of Trinity's brow bone. If you look at eyebrows, you will notice that they really aren't up here at the top of the brow bone, but they start below the brow bone and they feather up and out towards the ear, and all different ways, and we'll keep building on that as we go. I'm going to put a nice thick layer. Just keep loading my brush a little bit. I'm going to keep looking at him and turning him around. And then I'm going to add some more. And my brush is getting just a little bit too coated, so I've got a white cloth here in my lap, and I'm just going to clean my brush on that cloth. It's important to keep brushes that are just for the use with your varnishes, and brushes that are just for the use of air dry paints, and brushes that are just for the use of Genesis or any other oil paints. So these brushes are just wiped clean with my cloth and stored in a plastic bag until I am using the varnishes again. So I've got a little bit of a base there. So then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Now, be aware that we do want to have symmetrical babies, and we're going to do our best, but sometimes the sculpt itself is not perfectly symmetrical. So you just do the best that you can. And you know, that's not a bad thing. If you look at people, people really aren't all that symmetrical, nor are babies. So I can already see that I've got this up just a little bit higher than this. Actually, it's kind of matches this line here, so I need to bring some down lower. And I'm going to clean off my brush. Trinity's head kind of rolls around, so I've just taken some makeup wedges and pop under his head so it doesn't roll. And just keep moving that doll head around until you get the right angle. I'm left-handed, so I'm going to hold mine probably different than all of you right-handed people out there. So just be creative, do what works well for you. Clean that brush off again. I just need a little bit of thickness right here on this end. And it needs to go just a tiny bit straighter. So I believe that I have too much on this lower end here. So I'm just going to take a small skewer, scrape some of that off. I'm utilizing that clean white cloth in my lap to remove the excess. I tend to like this one better, which is normal for me. That tends to be my better eyebrow. And it's not finished yet, so don't worry about that. We're going to keep working on that. Take some of this down. I can use the other end of this skewer too if I need a wider area to remove. And he does have a little bit of differences in his eyebrows, in the brow bone that is sculpted into him. Okay, I think I can make more adjustments on this next step. So the next step is to take a nice pointed toothpick, just a regular old toothpick, and just sculpt the eyebrow. This is an eyebrow guide that I've had around, obviously, for a long time. I printed it out from a website called Artistic,